Hey everybody, Jazzy here. Here's the Year 5 recap for Thrill of the Grill, which is my solo Warley world over on Twitch. Last year was super productive. We set up a Bunnyman fire farm, a gecko pen, farmed a bunch of wood, and ran a few bosses. As Year 5 rolled around, I was still in the caves trying to finish up the Replica Relic blueprints. The final two ancient chest recipes call for normal berries, of which we presumably have none on the surface. I had discovered one regular bush in the caves, and I picked berry. And since I hadn't found the second bush in 3 days, I just headed back over and picked the bush a second time. Now we get to journey all the way back to the ruins and make these stupid blueprints. Thank God I never have to do this again. Now we can go back upstairs. The deciduous trees are not yet ready to harvest, and they probably went through a cycle during summer. This year I'm gonna try planting them a few days earlier just to see if they mature more quickly next autumn. But while I'm waiting, I can set down some more chests in the main area. Now I need scales for the scale chests, so I'm using the deconstruction staff to duplicate them. You can craft 6 scaled flooring from a single scale, then deconstruct each piece for a new scale. It's a great way to really quickly farm up scales, and it's one of my favorite uses of green gems. I had dumped all the light bugs in my chest zone thinking that they would eventually disperse and populate the whole biome, but they don't appear to be wandering too far, which makes me think that they might be semi-tethered to their drop-off spot. So I'm recatching a few and moving them manually. And you actually don't need to do this for each one because as soon as you catch one, you get another 3 circling you. So you can reposition up to 4 at a time with one use of a net. Day 289 is my big autumn tree harvest. Gets more satisfying every year. But now that I have the wood to spare on roads, I need rocky turf. And for the first time in the run, I'm faced with the reality that our world does not have a rocky biome. I could find some turf on the lunar biome and probably a few pieces in the mosaic, but in lieu of a rocky biome, I'm probably gonna have the best luck in the caves. Eventually though, we'll get a terra firma tamper and then we'll be able to just craft rocky turf on demand. Day 296, I'm building a tackle receptacle so that I can start crafting lures for ocean fishing. Eventually I'm going to want to hunt for albatross by fishing at a shoal, and those fish are really tough to catch without the spinner baits that you craft at the tackle station. Towards the end of autumn, I'm grabbing a couple of fossil fragments from the caves by mining stalagmites. Spitter spiders are awful, and I was having a rough time with them. Finally, a viewer told me to catch them with a trap. I wish I had thought of this 1,000 hours ago, but frankly, that's why I stream. I tried to sneak in a shadow chess piece fight right at the beginning of winter, and guess who decided to crash the party? Time for a battle royale. Level 3 Rook versus Deerclops. They both have area of effect attacks, so getting them aggroed on each other should have been a breeze. Except the Rook AI seems to prioritize nearby players over mobs, even if the mobs are attacking it. The solution was to just stand back as far as possible. Once Clops started pounding on the Rook, then they started dueling without distraction. To be honest, it was no contest. Clops has less HP, the Rook hits super hard, and even dodged a few hits. To the winner go the spoils. Just kidding. A new challenger approaches. Spectator takes all. Day 308, we got a super clean claws kill. I only got hit once by a Krampus, and I was able to avoid all but 1 HP of damage from the magic casts. I'm learning that you can dodge the ice cast if you change direction at the right time with enough speed. The damage from that cast alone can add up over the course of the fight, so it's nice when you can avoid it. The loot! Shroom skin and crap. Happy Hanukkah, Santa! Give me my damn wax. For the rest of winter, I wanted to explore the ocean a bit and discover a few resources. Before I head out, I need to make some boat patches, but the bees won't be coming out in winter. I was actually so lazy and desperate for stingers that I lit my own bee boxes on fire to smoke out some bees. I did an okay job controlling the fire until it spread to the flowers while the bees had me stun locked out of blowing the luxury fan. Burned about 8 flowers. Oops. We got the stingers though. Time to go sailing. The first resource I'm hunting for is salt formations. These can be mined for salt crystals, which can be used to craft a salt box, and extra salt can be made into seasoning. It did not take much time at all to find a massive collection of salt formations, guarded by an insane amount of cookie cutters. These little bastards are deadly in large numbers, and I'm trying to inch toward them so that I only aggro a couple at a time, but apparently their decision to aggro is influenced by nearby cookie cutters because 10 of them suddenly decided to attack my boat all at once. The little stinkers are not as stupid as they look because I had multiple holes in my boat in a matter of seconds. Patting myself on the back so hard for almost burning my bee boxes for stingers. I will never drop anchor around the adorable hell spawn ever again. Gotta be ready to retreat if too many charge my boat. Anyways, we can start to save up cookie cutter shells now, and we're gonna need 10 for one of Hermit's house upgrades. I highly recommend bringing a lazy forager when farming salt because it can take a lot of time maneuvering your boat around the formations to pick up the crystals that drop. Sometimes you can't even squeeze your boat between salt formations if they generate too closely, so using a lazy forager will ensure you collect all the salt. A couple days later, we find a shoal. I'm not set up for a Malbatross fight quite yet, so I'll come back here after I craft a battle boat and a handful of spinnerbaits. I return back to a base, overrun by bunnymen. There are no holes in the fire farm, so I'm assuming that they pushed each other through the statues in front of the bait before the statues loaded. If I approach them from the ocean behind the farm, then it actually makes sense that the bunnies would load up before the statues. But I think I can prevent this from happening by just not leaving the oven constantly baited. Anyways, it's time for a salt box. This will store raw meats and crops for 4 times longer, which is twice the effectiveness of an ice box. A very nice addition to our kitchen. And now it's time to fight Fuelweaver again, reset the ruins, and get our second bone armor. First, I'm clearing a few clockworks around the obelisk and right outside the gateway room. That way I can restore my sanity with the Bee Queen crown, then just run back to the gateway room without any clockworks chasing me in. And then we get to wait around for 2 days until the rain decides to start. I don't even remember, what were we talking about during this time? Thank God for chat. I think we resorted to talking about like our favorite toppings on pizza. Whatever gets us through the non-rainy nights, I suppose. Anyway, finally the bones get wet and we can start the fight. I'm able to use all 3 drops from the last Fuelweaver fight. The bone helmet I can use in place of a nightmare amulet and it doesn't lose durability when worn. The thurible I can use to create a small radius of immunity to the bone snare attack, and the bone armor is going to be great for tanking. Because I only have 1 bone armor, I'm going to swap between it and a thulecite suit while the barmer is on cooldown. You need a thurible to tank with bone armor because if Fuelweaver is casting snares, then the bone armor will absorb that hit and not the next skull attack. But now we are blessed with our second bone armor, which is going to be a game changer for so many boss fights, including Dragonfly and the next Fuelweaver. I'm gonna stick around the atrium for a couple minutes and just clear the entryway room again after the clockworks respawn. Now that I got double barmer, this task is going to be much less stressful and less costly. Back home towards the end of spring, I'm picking out a spot to start building a pig farm. Bunnyman drops are about to get nerfed when Reap What You Sow gets released, so I'm thinking long term about how I'm gonna farm meat. I also want to start farming pigskin for hambats and eventually build pig houses at the Moonstone. So I'm settling on a design that will allow for 16 pig houses. I know it's not an obscene amount, but because I'm going to be harvesting my ham by hand, I'm not going to overdo it for this farm. I doubt that I could kill more than 16 werepigs in a single night, and that's already going to be a really good harvest. Day 332 is my first time taking my new pet forest stalker for a stroll through some planted evergreens. I like to set up 2 tight rows of trees, and if I position the skeleton right, then I can have a march straight through all the trees in one go. I really like this method for harvesting trees. It's just too bad that I need to dig up the stumps afterwards. When it comes to logs, Bearger will always be my #1 sugar daddy, but this method will be good for year-round harvesting. Last day of spring, I'm planting the birch nuts again. Looking forward to the next big haul in autumn, but for summer, it's back to the ruins. Having 2 bone armors is going to make clearing ruins such a treat. Being able to absorb hits at the cost of nightmare fuel is so much cheaper than burning through expensive armor and healing items. Plus, we're constantly getting more nightmare fuel, so the protection is very self-sustaining. On my keyboard, I map Z, X, and C to inventory slots 1 through 3. I'll put the second bone armor in my second inventory slot, then I just smash X whenever I take a hit, and I can absorb a hit every 2.5 seconds. Versus a single bishop, this will completely protect you, because they attack slower than that cooldown. I also remembered to bring down a Bee Queen crown this time, and I'm using it during the nightmare phase to get my sanity back at the nightmare lights. If you're bringing your loot to the complete pseudoscience station set piece, then it's really useful to keep one around so that your sanity isn't constantly bottomed out while you're trying to craft in peace. After a thorough clearing, we go attend to Ancient Guardian. Every time I do this fight, I get viewers asking why I don't just cheese the fight. And the honest truth is that I get zero pleasure in standing behind a gravestone and holding down attack. Just none. I'd much rather face Ancient Guardian head on every single time, even if it takes a little bit of time. The loot is good enough to warrant a little risk. If I were playing on my own, then I'd probably consider moving this fight along, but when streaming, I always assume that at least one viewer is watching me play the game because they want to learn the strategies for fighting bosses that actually require a little bit of skill. And I am rewarded handsomely for my diligence, a lazy explorer, and 10 thulecite in the large ornate chest. Last day of summer, I'm back at the station and crafting 4 deconstruction staves, a star staff, 4 stacks of walls, and 4 thulecite crowns. That's it for year 5. It feels really good to be moving through the early parts of the game at a decent tick and getting quickly to the fun building part of the game. Next year, we're going to have our yearly tree harvest, continue work on the pig farm, do our first Malbatross fight, and finally start messing around with the new farm plots. I hope you are enjoying the recap videos, and see you next time.